Imagine not being Leeds, not feeling this pain, not dancing through thunder, not walking through rain. Imagine not rising with fists in the air when the world turned its back and no one would care. We've lived in the ashes, we've drowned in defeat, but still we stand proud on our battered old feet. Imagine not loving with all that you are. Imagine not being Leeds.
We love you, Leeds, Leeds, Leeds.
We do love you, Leeds. Now then, folks, thought I'd do a little video today to discuss something that's been on my mind since late night Leeds last night. Did a decent stream, a 2-hour long stream last night with AG and Sean Carney, which was great, from Wilco Whites. But yeah, some got brought up there. Quite a lot of comments suggesting, has Farke lost the dressing room? Is he on his way to losing the dressing room? Have some of the players down tools for Farke? And I thought it was quite a good little point to sort of address this morning and speak about my opinion on that sort of topic. So obviously it's quite a damning thing to suggest. It's certainly a major worry for anyone if that is the case. I would say, in my personal opinion, that I don't think anybody's down tools as of yet. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I think in my opinion, there'll be certain players within this club that, let's be fair, who aren't playing many minutes, will definitely have a different opinion than the favoured few. We know people like Brendan Aronson getting minutes over, say, Willie Nonto. I think the Aston Villa game is going to show us so much. We've got a 2-week break now. There's a lot of players not away on international duty, Willie Nonto being one of them. A lot of players that I think need to come back into this side, or need to come into this side for potentially the first time in a long time. Maybe a Strauch, maybe a Willie Nonto, maybe an Amper who maybe needs to come out. I think there's a few personnel decisions that I think he really needs to look at, and I think he needs to execute it, so well, because I ultimately think it's a must-win for Farke. I know the rhetoric is he's been given these 4 games. I think that can certainly change if we were to get off to a poor start against Villa, that being the most likely to pick up any points. Let's be fair, that's probably true. But I think in recent performances, Burnley away, I know the stats said a different sort of story to the actual result. It was still a turgid performance. I don't feel like the players have looked massively bothered or massively arsed, which is a damning thing to say as a fan since the Burnley game. The whole competitive tag we've used as fans, and the media we've used, and everything we've sort of that transpired in the transfer market led us to believe we'd be a competitive side. And I even made some bold statements that I don't think we'd concede as many as a newly promoted side would normally concede, and we'd be quite tight at the back. And early on, bar Arsenal, I was thinking I'd done a good little tip there, and it looked like that's the way it was going to be. Now it's just goals all over, and a minus 20 goal difference, minus 10 goal difference. Minus 10, conceded 20. That's the right way around. So yeah, at this stage of season, it's not good to have conceded 20 goals and already be on a minus 10 goal difference. We're not scoring as many as you'd want as your side, as a Premier League side. You need to be putting yourself in a much better position to win football games, and ultimately if you're not scoring goals and you conceded 2 or 3, it ain't going to happen. I think heads have dropped. I certainly think heads have dropped on certain players. There's a massive lack in form, which obviously comes hand in hand with performing poorly and not picking up points. And we always knew we were going to have moments like this season. A lot of us tipped 16th, 17th as a finish, and many would take that. But to finish there, it means you're going to go through these hardships. I always thought there was a likelihood and a chance we could finish 16th, 17th, but still have a manager change. But to sort of go back to the point of, has he lost the dressing room? I can understand why people are saying it on certain performances. Because I've used the term, I thought Forest, a lot of the players didn't look arsed. I think the energy levels that we've seen in that, if you split the season in half, the first 5 or 6 games compared to the other 5 or 6 games, it's been like a different side. We know we haven't got the most talented group. We know we're lacking a little bit of quality here and there. It's what everybody spoke about all season. We definitely are lacking in that cutting edge in that final third. But there should be no lack of effort. There should be no lack of running, tracking your runners, letting the goals we've conceded are being criminal. Letting your runner from midfield just goes past you like you're not even there. That has to change. You can bridge the gap of quality to a degree with being on your A game and giving everything you've got, even if you're not at that level. You really can. Sit in a mid or a low block, execute your tactics and your personal sort of battle one-on-one with whoever you're sort of marking or the area that pitch you're defending in, tracking, like say the runner. You can execute that. If all 11 players can execute that to almost the full potential, then you can bridge that gap of quality. And when you put hand in hand, a quality difference and a lack of effort against some of these sides, like at Brighton, like at Forest, hence why there's been quite a few pummelings so far this season. And I class a 3-1 loss at Forest a pummeling. I'd definitely class a 3-0 at Brighton a pummeling, and the 5-0 at Arsenal goes without saying. And the way we're performing right now, there'll be the word pummeling coming again in the next few weeks. I don't see how we're going to keep a clean sheet at any point. Honestly, I think we could play a League One side at a minute and still concede a goal. So the likelihood is we're going to concede a fair few goals in these games, which says to me, what's the best way of getting points in these games? For me, we're going to start scoring goals. So it may seem a little bit of a wrong way of looking at it, but I would like us to set up in a way that gives us the opportunity to score goals. So is it a formation change? Is it a personnel change? Is it the handbrake off? The passing, the possession with purpose, which just isn't working at the minute? Is it sit back in a low block and try and counter-attack, get Dan James on the field, get Willie Nonto on the field, get some difference makers up that top end of the pitch? Something needs to happen because, honestly, at the minute, we are going to concede for me in every game we play, and especially with the quality of the teams we're playing. And I do think, like I say, heads have dropped, form's dropped, and I think it's a massive week. We'll see in this game, we've been at Elland Road. We always know what it's like at Elland Road. The players play, give extra percent. They up the levels. They do, and they should do in front of their own crowd. It's a bit of a different vibe away from home. We are really struggling. But I think this will give us the biggest indication, if Farke is losing the players. Because that fight and lack of effort we've seen in the away games, they can probably get away with it to a degree. At Elland Road, there's nowhere to hide. There is absolutely nowhere to hide for this group of players, and it will be so obvious and so evident if we get beaten well, and there's a massive lack of effort. I want to see every single player up and down that pitch, chasing, winning the duels, looking like they give a toss, because they should do. Because if they care about Daniel Farke and want him to remain as manager, they will show that next weekend against Aston Villa. And if they don't, it'll tell you everything you need to know, that they've lost faith in him. But I'd say right now it feels a little bit premature. Potentially like the sacking might to some. To some, the sacking's a little premature. I think because of the international break it should have happened, but I understand why it hasn't. I think the Villa game is the one where I think even the biggest Farke fans, if it goes wrong, and I mean well wrong, I think he'll lose that minority too. So, like I say, it's going to be really important that he gets his tactics right against a really well coached side, with some absolute top draw talent, absolute ballers they've got at Villa. And if we don't show that fight, and Farke has lost that dressing room, or if it's going that way, then it's going to be so obvious. It's going to be so obvious at home at Elland Road. So yeah, in my opinion, I don't think he's there yet with the players. I do think there'll be a few who, like your Joel Pinno's, maybe your Gruevs, who's been a favourite of Farke's, don't get me wrong, the both of at times, but this season looks surplus to requirements unless it's mass injuries or certain game state situations. There'll be a few, I think, in there who I don't think could be too disheartened if a new manager came in and the slate was wiped clean. First day of training under a new manager, everyone starts at zero. Everyone's got more opportunity getting that side than what they have with a manager who's been there 3 years, who's got his favourites. So there'll be one or two in there. Maybe one or two out on loan as well that won't mind a managerial switch. But yeah, to say he's lost them, I think it's probably a little bit early to sort of say that. But is it going that way? And if we lose at Villa, you'd have to say it probably is. But the manner of the defeats have been what's hurt and stuck out the most for me of late. And that needs to change. If we lose to Villa, we lose to Villa. If we can walk away from there as fans and go, we got beat by, a little bit of quality, but you can't you can't question the effort, then that's all you can do. There's a chance you can go down as a newly promoted side, obviously. A huge chance, more of a chance you go down than stay up. But going down with a whimper and sleepwalking into relegation is not what I want to see my club do, not what I want to see my board, manager, that level of, aggression in every aspect of the club needs to be there. And we've lacked aggression for me in the transfer market. And now we're lacking aggression on the pitch, and that needs to change for us to, stand any chance of turning this round. But yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts. I really, really would. I'd love to know how you see that sort of statement. Do you think he's lost the dressing room? Do you think he's losing the dressing room? Do you think he's lost, a couple of players that maybe don't like the way we've set up in certain games? Like I can imagine away at Brighton. Right, we're playing out from the back. This is the tactics. I can imagine a few of these, professional footballers, a lot of them experienced, thinking, what are we doing here? You could see the writing on the wall pretty much in the first 5 minutes of that game where we're going to get tonked. And I feel like it set us up in a poor manner for that, and that was on Farke. Forest, similar, but for me, Forest, the players didn't show up. So like I said, they're all culpable, not just Farke, the board, the players, everybody's culpable to some level of... to make that point, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think he's lost the dressing room? Do you think he's losing it? Do you think Villa is the ultimate eye-opener to all us fans to see where this side is, and how much they value Daniel Farke too? But yeah, that is me. A little video on a Saturday. Yeah, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe and all that jargon. Hope you have a great weekend. Love you all the bits. Leeds.